Here.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Akrinos Access. I'm your host, Eric Matei, joined today by the eyewear image expert, Wendy Buchanan, for part 3 of this 3-part series that Wendy has joined us here on Akrinos Access. And in this episode, we are talking about how to compete with online. You may recall in episode 1, we kicked things off where Wendy just kind of shared with us a little bit how to evaluate this question that probably many of you are asking, would you buy from you? From there, we built on that in episode 2. We started to unpack this concept of the 5 spec styles, and Wendy shared with us some ways that you can reframe the game in your optical. And now here in episode 3, we are pulling it all together to talk about how we can compete and win when competing with online. So Wendy, welcome back to Akrinos Access.
Great to be back with you, Eric. I love everything that you do. The way that you're breaking down practices on where they're at and where you're going to take them, whether they're cold start or how do they grow in those peak years or even transition to have that pot of gold at the end. Like what you're doing is incredible and nobody else out there is doing that. So thank you. Thank you for all you do.
Well, thank you so much for the kind words, Wendy. And look, I know we got a ton to get into in this episode. And why don't you say we kick things off by maybe you can just provide us a snapshot of some of the optical e-commerce trends that are out there.
Yeah. Well, and the best way to compete is to know our competition. And online does a lot of things really well. And we can borrow some of what they're doing well and implement them into independent practices. The first thing that I see them doing amazingly well is convenience. You can hop online, you can look at frames, you can do a virtual try on. It's convenient. You can do it whenever you want to do it. The price point is attractive for sure. It's that lower price point for certain groups of people that they want to spend $100 on a pair of glasses, and we respect that and appreciate it. And their styles, I would say their styles are very classic and relate to the natural and the subtle, sophisticated spec style. So they do have that 40% of the market that they are serving in their styling. They're not maybe going outside of that, but their numbers are incredible. So I looked at one of the big ones, and I'm not going to say their name, but you probably all know them. And in the second quarter of 2024, they had nearly 2.4 million active shoppers, and they were up almost 9% over the same quarter in 2023. And I don't know about who's listening to this right now, but to see a 10% growth in 2024 was not the norm for independent practice. They've really excelled in branding and branding direct to consumer, creating some kind of excitement. But what I loved when I started to look at their numbers was they market themselves as $100 or under $100 for a pair of glasses, but their average sale is $302, triple what they market. So they have done an excellent job at upselling, whether that's multi-pairs that they're moving from 100 to 300 with multi-pairs, or they're upselling on a higher end frame. It might be what we call a more luxurious frame, but they're doing that. So they're doing some really good things that we can steal or borrow. We're going to borrow them. We're not going to steal them. We're not going to get thrown in jail for anything we're going to do.
Love it. And that's really interesting you say that, Wendy. A couple things, right? I mean, number one, to your point, 2024, it's been a really fascinating year in eye care. I mean, for all intents and purposes, the business has been flat when you look net across the industry, right?
Yeah.
So to look at this particular online eyewear retailer that you said was up nearly 10% in Q2 at a time when the industry was not seeing that, um, digging a little deeper to see what are they doing. And I think you hit the nail on the head, right? And that is what is online optical doing well? It's the convenience piece, right?
Hmm.
Price, although it's fascinating to consider that the average sale totally beats that lower price, right? I mean, so the degree to which people are going online for a lower price, I think, is questionable, and I appreciate you bringing that
Yeah.
to light. Um, they've done a really good job of branding, but then that last piece, as you mentioned, from a style standpoint, they're kind of short stocked style wise, right? Like you mentioned,
Hmm.
like a lot of the styles of the online optical retailers are kind of falling more in the subtle sophisticate and that natural realm, and they're missing out on that other 60% of the population. So really fascinating insights, just kind of kick things off regarding e-commerce. So why don't we now start to shift gears to where you see opportunities for independents to really go head to head and not
Yeah.
only compete, but win when competing with online.
Yeah. And to go back to our previous segment about reframe your game, and for the people that didn't listen to that segment, we talked a lot about our boards catering to subtle sophisticate and the natural, because a lot of eye care professionals fall into that spec style. So that frame diversification is key if we want to keep that online shopper in our optometry clinic. So they're coming in the door anyway to get a eye exam. So how do we keep them? What are we going to do that we can avoid them walking out and going home and getting online? And I think one of the if we really look at first convenience is important to that e-commerce shopper. And how do we make it convenient when they come in the door so that they see, okay, this is a one-stop shop. I can do everything right here, and I don't need to go home and then spend another hour or longer online, because I've tried to buy glasses online to see what they're doing. I'm well versed in optical, and I can't, it takes me forever to go through all of the pages and try to find something. And obviously it doesn't play to my style, so I can't get excited about it. So I'm just trying to find the best of the best. But one key thing, and I sat down and I talked to a lot of Gen Zs who are big online shoppers and a lot of millennials, and I sat down and I interviewed them individually. And the one thing they said is if they buy at their optometrist, then they've got to turn around and go back and pick them up. So they've got to make an appointment. Somebody's calling them. They've got to make an appointment. They've got to drive there. A lot of them don't drive, so they have to take public transit. They have to take time off work. It costs them money and time to go back for that pickup. And some of the clinics I worked with, it's like, well, why don't we just offer to ship them to their door? They're in the clinic. You've helped them choose the frames. You've got them at the right price point, and maybe you've made an offer for multiple pairs and you've moved them from $100, or even if they buy one pair at $250, they're still under what they might spend online, and they've got a really good pair and a good experience. But then, you know what? I know this might be a hassle for you to come back and pick them up. What if I do all the adjustments now and I ship them to your door? And they're like, oh, that would be awesome. I don't have to go back. I don't have to go online. I'm not wasting any more time. So that's one big tip or best practice that if you can work that into your practice, I would highly recommend it to try to capture that market. The other kind of solution I came up with too is how fast can you turn around these single vision lenses? Because typically they're going to be a single vision basic prescription. How fast can you turn it around? Because especially Gen Z, they're digital natives. They grew up with everything's coming fast. And can you prioritize those to get them out the door in 3 to 4 days? How fast can you do that? It's like, I'm not only am I going to ship them to your door, I'm going to have them there in 5 days. And they're like, whoa, that's way better than some of the online options who stretch that time out a little bit more. But you're local. So local, you can get it there faster. They're not going maybe across country or across borders. And the third thing that I've started to work is modernize your systems, and not just your systems communicating with your patients, but they don't want to answer the phone. They don't want to pick up the phone. They're going to let it go to voicemail, and then they're going to have to call you back. So anything you can do that's a little bit higher tech, where you're texting the patient. Reminders are all going out. And a lot of the independents are already doing that. They've modernized their practices. But if you haven't, that's something to consider. And where I've worked with one company, and we even set that communication up between the optical stylists and the eye doctors. That if somebody comes in last minute and they want an eye test, but you look at the schedule and it's full, and later you say, oh, I could have got one more patient in, and the doctor's like, oh, why didn't you ask me? Well, if your team is a Gen Z or a millennial, they don't want to walk to the back. They don't want to knock on your exam room door and ask you that. But if they could send you a quick text and say, hey, doc, I've got like this person in the optical, they've got time today. I know you're full. Is there anywhere you think we could slip them in? And that's easily done. We can tell the patient really quickly, yes or no. And while we're waiting to get them in, we're presenting the eyewear. So there's all these things that we can slowly incorporate or take bits and pieces of in our optical in order to close them and increase that capture rate.
You know, it's really fascinating how you peel this back to look at what is the competitive advantage of e-commerce? And the fact is, when you kind of really start to peel the onion back, you come to realize they actually have a minor competitive advantage compared to the competitive advantage that the independent has with the patient in their office, right? Because it ties back to really what online is hanging its hat on is purely convenience, branding, surround sound branding, personalized branding, which I think could be a whole other episode of having you back on Access to talk about, Wendy, right? But that personalized experience. And again, that third piece simply being the process. What is that process? What are the operations like when they're seeking to work with an online retailer? Not they, all of us, right? I mean, we all purchase stuff online. I mean, we may not purchase eyewear online, but we all purchase things online, right? So that being said, start to think of how can the brick and mortar independent compete? Right? Tip of the iceberg, you said operations and systems. Let's think of ways that we can enhance that patient engagement when they are outside of the four walls of the practice, right? Number two.
And even, go ahead. No, go ahead. I just had a thought too about the engagement piece of it, that let's just assume for a minute that everybody's been looking online, or at least we know certain generations are likely have been online. They booked an eye test and they've been online looking at glasses. Just call it out. Can you show me what you've been looking at online? Oh yeah, this is what I've been looking at. I like this and I like this. You know what? I've got ones just like that. I'll pull them and have them all ready for you when you come out, and I can show you styles, but also I can make sure the fit's right and that you're going to be comfortable and you're going to see perfectly. It's not like, oh, what are you looking for today? It's like, no, lead that sales conversation. Assume they've been online. Show me what you've been looking at. And they're like, they don't even have to answer yes or no. They're like, oh, okay, you already know I've been online. This is what I want. It's that little tweaks in how we engage, going back to first impression, and what does that look like? Why are they going to stay and buy from you? It could be that one tweak in your conversation.
Absolutely. Wendy, that also brings us back to episode 1, right? And get to our viewers out there. This is episode 3 of a 3-part series we're doing with the eyewear image expert, Wendy Buchanan. And actually, it was in episode 1, y'all, that she shared, we were just saying, hey, what do modern optical consumers, what are they looking for in their purchase?
Mhm.
And you hit the nail on the head in that very first episode, Wendy, and that was, how does it make them feel? What is that experience like? And what is that relationship they have with the retailer, right?
Yeah.
So if we put this in context, right, online, that customized branding that feels like a good relationship from a consumer standpoint, if online is showing them what the data is telling online to show them, right?
Yeah.
But to shift gears and realize that when they're in the practice, to heck with a virtual try on a website, they can put the product on their face in the optical, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things that the brick and mortar private practice has to, heck, not just compete with online, but really have people forgetting that online was ever even an option. But it's all in how you show up and how you engage with a patient. Wendy, I know this is such a fascinating topic, this world of online and competing with online. And I think it's really interesting that you've touched on those things that online does very well, right? And that is the convenience piece, and that is that customized one-on-one direct-to-consumer branding. And you've shared some really great pearls on how independents can win this, right?
Yeah.
And it's stepping up that engagement with the patient, stepping up operations and systems, right? Are we utilizing modern communication systems to engage with our consumers, with our patients? But then those other things you mentioned, and that was the turnaround time and direct ship. It's fascinating you touched on the fact that the lion's share of online optical, it's not sophisticated RXs. It's not digital progressive and a lot of fascinating optics. It's a lot of simple single vision stuff. So that really does beg the question, where's the opportunity if we find that we have a lot of single vision coming into the practice? Where's our opportunity to be proactive, maybe be proactive and invest in an edger and really start to turn this product around in a way that patient seeking convenience, that online retailer can never compete with the ability to really scale those operations if you're running your own lab and finishing in your practice. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg, right?
Well, and they cannot compete with you. They can't compete if you're human and you're creating an experience and you're excited to be with them and you're excited to serve them. And you also have like that style savvy. You can speak their language. You can show them what doesn't work, which they might have been looking at online. Oh, let me show you something very similar, just so they can show you it might not be the best fit for you. Or I see you as this style and you really come in with this type of vibe and energy. That's not going to do you justice. The color might even bring you down a bit. It's those simple conversations that are human that no one online is going to say that crystal frame is going to wash you out and make you look tired. Nobody online is going to say that. And you won't even maybe see it in a virtual try on because of the color distortion too. So the superpower really is in the people. It comes back to our very first segment is your people are your power. Your people have that ability to make that positive first impression, engage at a highly emotional level, emotional service, I call it, and then close with confidence and close with credibility.
Yeah. Wendy, what a powerful way to wrap up this 3-parter, right? And I know when we embarked on this, it started with kind of some casual conversations. Well, I suppose all this started with some remarkable client collaborations we've done between Akrinos and Be Spectacular, working with mutual clients, right? But out of that came this vision to have this multi-part series. And I don't know, I think this is the first of what may be some more episodes together. But before we wrap that up, to kind of pull it all together, our viewers out there, again, we've been hanging out with Wendy Buchanan, the eyewear image expert. And in this episode 3 of 3, we've been talking about competing with online. So, to wrap it all up, if you're out there in your business in the early years, starting out, looking to maximize those peak earnings years, or looking to transition the business, competing with online really ties back to something that, and Wendy, I think you pulled it all together emphatically, beautifully, and that is, it's all about the experience. And delivering the experience in the modern independent private practice is about your systems and your people. And that's where I think between Be Spectacular and Akrinos, right, have a lot of really great solutions and tools that doctors can use to really make it happen. And Wendy, to that end, before we do sign off and wrap this up, please share a little bit about the nature of the work that you guys do at Be Spectacular.
Yeah, really, I love to work with independents for sure. Everything from cold start to well-established that are going, making those big jumps. But I'm a licensed optician. I'm an image consultant, and I take all of that and I bring it together in a sales training. So it's really, Be Spectacular is a style and sales training, with the focus being on presenting multi-pair offers based on spec styles, which you heard us allude to in maybe the second episode, and help optical teams really elevate that experience they create so that they can build those businesses and build it with sustainability, that they can drive their multi-pair sales, obviously for profitability, but have the community talking about them. That business that starts to walk in the door without you having to do anything, the referral business goes up and the repeat business goes up. And so it's bringing all of that together, but really around fashion, styling, and selling, which we don't learn in school. So it is a learned skill. We're not born with it. It's made and it's trained.
Yeah. Fascinating. Outstanding work, Wendy. And to all of our listeners out there, again, Akrinos works very closely with Be Spectacular. And we and many Akrinos clients can speak to the impact that the Be Spectacular systems can have in really taking that modern optical to the next level. So if you'd like to connect with Wendy, you can reach out to us here at Akrinos. We can put you in touch, or you can reach out to her directly. Shoot an email, wendy@bespectacular.com, and definitely head on over to bespectacular.com to learn more about the spec styles and the ways that you can take your optical to the next level. So, Wendy, this has been a fascinating exploration in these first 3 episodes. So what do you say we have you back on, and we'll do another series here down the line, talking about ways to empower independents to really maximize the potential of their optical?
I love our conversations, and I love the creativity that comes with the collaboration and brainstorming. So thank you for the opportunity. And I would like to give a shout out back that if you're cold start or looking to really grow, reach out to Eric, because his analytics and the way he puts numbers together, even for me as the creative artsy type, it pulls it all together with revenue and analytics. And I love it. So thank you. Thanks for having me here with you.
Awesome. Well, Wendy, it's been a pleasure. And to all of our viewers out there, hey, wherever you are in your private practice journey, no matter what that next milestone is, opening that cold start, buying that practice, growing your established practice, or selling your legacy business, head over to akrinos.com. We got a ton of ways we can help you make it happen. Wendy, thank you so much again for joining us here on Akrinos Access.
Thank you.